Hello, this is Galen Martling. Today I have another watercolor card, and it's a Watercolor Florals, and it's more of a loose watercolor effect in pastel colors. And so for the stamping, I'm using Unity Stamp Company kit called Fear Not. It's a pretty Easter kit as well. It's got some Easter sentiments and a lovely floral. Now these florals have sketches all throughout the petals and leaves, lots of sketching. And so this gives a different look to any kind of coloring that you're going to do. So this came out a little darker than I wanted it to. I think the sketching gives it a different look and hue, so I use pastel colors just to lighten it and soften it a little. And so for watercolor, I'm using Distress Inks by Ranger. I'm using Sponge Sugar, Victorian Velvet, and Speckled Egg colors. And so what I'm going to do is what I did do is just take the ink pads, the Distress ink pads, and put them on a palette. I used an Altenew palette mat, and I just put each shade of ink color onto the mat using the ink pad. And then I have a water container and a brush, and I gently wet the brush and dampen it a little and pick up some of that color directly off the mat and apply it to my stamped flower. So the stamping was done with waterproof ink onto watercolor paper, and then I just trimmed it with a die cut, but a paper trimmer can work as well. And so I just go ahead and make sure all of that inking is dry and set, and then start to apply the color. I'm using the darker color first, and I'm only putting it onto the inner parts and the folds of the flower. And then I go in with a little water and blend out that darker shade, not all the way to the tips. I'm going to add a light pink color later at the tips of these leaves and flower petals, just to soften the look at the ends. Now this is not going for a perfect look. It's more of a loose watercolor look for these flowers. And Distress ink, when water is added, becomes lighter anyway. It's just the nature of that type of ink. And so Distress ink watercolor is going to be much lighter than using regular watercolor, especially when it dries. And so I went over it a couple times with some colors just to darken it a little, but it will still dry very light. But I was going for a pastel look anyway. And so for the leaves, I'm using the Speckled Egg color of Distress ink and adding some of that. It's sort of a mix between a blue and a green. It's so pretty. I love it. Very soft color. And I finished off those leaves using that Speckled Egg color. Now for the outside area, sort of for shading on this whole flower, I'm going to use that very light pink, and I add that all the way around the flower. And so first I go ahead and blend out any places I might have missed with the regular watercolor. Then I heat set it. Once it's heat set, I go ahead and add that shading, a very light pink of watercolor shading all around that flower, sort of a background look in pink. And that softens the look even further. And I really like how it came out. It's very soft. I overlap the sentiment a little bit over the flower stamping because I knew I was going to use light colors, and the sentiment still shows nicely. So for the card, I use an A2 card base, and I go ahead and frame that panel with a gray cardstock in the background, and then I place with foam tape that stamped and watercolored panel. Added 3 droplets. They look like little water droplets. I'm using dies by My Favorite Things, droplets by Pretty Pink Posh, and watercolor by Ranger Distress ink. I hope you like this, and I hope you give it a try. Thanks so much for watching. Please take a moment to subscribe to my YouTube channel, share, and like, and have a great day.